Hi there. My name is Michael Hester, and I am a student at ASU right now. And today going to be talking about assessments, both what I know about assessments and then observations I've made on different types of assessments. Uh, so we'll start with some of what I know, and then we'll talk about what I've observed. Um, from the TLL website, assessment is the systematic collection of data to monitor the success of a program or course in achieving the intended learning outcomes for students. So, assessments are used to determine what students have learned, the outcome, the way they've learned the material, the process, their approach to learning before, during, or after the program or course. From the Edudemic website, Katie Leppy describes the two most common forms of assessment, formative and summative. Formative assessment is used to check students' progress. The information gained guides the next steps in instruction and helps teachers and students consider the additional learning opportunities needed to ensure success. So, that sounds complex, but formative assessments are not that complex. Formative assessments can be reviewing projects or performances that the students have done. It could be reviewing writing assignments. Personally, I think journals are a great place to learn the personal tastes of a student, maybe learn what they've encountered in school already, and then that might give you a better idea of what they need to learn or how they can improve. Writing is very key. Short tests or quizzes, but not major ones, can be considered formative assessments. Maybe a 5-question quiz on the math that they had done a day before, that day. That'd be a formative assessment. But formative assessments can be as simple as just watching, or watching or listening, or say observing over the student's shoulders, seeing what they're doing on their paper. Done that many a times. That's what I mostly did during my time observing assessments at the Boys and Girls Club, mostly formative. So Leppy continues to describe the second form of assessment. Second most common form of assessments, which are summative assessments. These are the kinds that carry more weight. These are the kinds that you refer to when you're trying to see, okay, does the student understand this? This is the grade that will tell me that. Summative assessments provide teachers and students with information about the attainment of knowledge. They often result in a grade. So, summative, much more part of the grade than, say, a formative assessment. But grades involved, which means they have a high point value. Summative assessments have a high point value. They can mean a lot. The goal is to evaluate student learning at the end of an instructional unit by comparing it against some sort of standard or benchmark. So where formative assessments more happen kind of during class, summative assessment almost always happens at the end when you want to assess understanding about the concept you've been covering. So examples of summative assessments, say final project on a subject. For example, final project on the American Revolution or like a certain animal or something like that. A midterm paper, a midterm exam that covers everything you've done. Or the very controversial, this is also a summative assessment, the standardized test. Very much a summative assessment. So, is a formative assessment better than a summative assessment? It is not. They really, I believe, go hand in hand. Formative assessment should almost always be happening, and the teacher should use this knowledge to create the summative assessments. For example, I could walk around the class and see the students are struggling with something like adding fractions. So, what I could do is stop the class there and address everyone with additional lecture time, or I could give a visual aid that has the steps of multiplying, adding fractions on it to the students. So, one thing about summative testing is that standardized testing is kind of a subdivision of summative testing. And from the Procon website, James Popham defined standardized testing as any test that's administered, scored, and interpreted in a standard predetermined manner. Mostly these are tests that are full of closed questioning, which is going more and more in the direction of what we don't want to be doing. Closed questioning is yes or no answers. The answer is just one word or one letter. And what we want to move towards is more open questions, and where open questioning used to involve a teacher grading the paper, now there are, according to Popham, now computers that can do that. Even the open questions, I'm not sure how that's done exactly, but computers analyze the writing and then would give you, I guess, some kind of evaluation. Of the standardized tests that are in use, high stakes achievement tests are the most controversial. Why? These assessments carry important consequences for students, teachers, and schools. So everything revolves around these tests, as much as they probably would not like to say that. But here's what happens. Low scores can prevent a student from progressing to the next grade level. I saw that happen in second grade. It could lead to a teacher being fired if that teacher underperforms so badly. Could cause even school closures. And high scores, on the other hand, might get the school more federal funding, more attention, but it also could lead to rewards for the teachers and administrators. They could get bonuses based on these performances on standardized tests. So I don't like it, but that's not what we're here to talk about quite yet. So these standardized tests usually use closed questions. Say, was George Washington integral to the American Revolution? Yes or no? That's simple. The open version of that question would be, how was George Washington integral to the American Revolution? It's not just yes or no. The student has to write what they think, what they've learned. They have to reflect on that. What was happening? What was the historical context? How was he important in the American Revolution? So that's the better type of questioning. So my part at the Boys and Girls Club was just as an observer. I worked with some of the staff and I observed what they assess, and I had to be a little creative with this because they're not assessing the children all that often. So most of the time, safety is the primary concern in that environment, and the welfare of the children is what comes first. That's what's most important. So while there are not as many summative assessments, there are some. Pretty much all the time, the volunteers are doing formative assessments of the children, not for correct answers or incorrect answers, but they're assessing the children for correct or incorrect behaviors, and then the understanding of why that was correct or why that was incorrect. That's mostly what the volunteers are assessing. The staff pays attention by watching, listening, and then the assessment, in the case of after they've watched and listened, is either taking action by talking to the child, ordering the child to do something else, or leading them to a harsher discipline. So that's basically the types of assessment that occur at a Boys and Girls Club. You're not giving them their math tests and their grammar tests at the Boys and Girls Club, but there are assessments happening all the time with kids. So children there, they might be doing their homework. The staff might formatively assess them by just looking over their shoulder and seeing what they know, and then asking them questions about what they know, if they're uncomfortable with anything, what they need to know. There is, I believe, a small summative assessment. There are small summative assessments that they do there, Unfortunately, I was not able to attend the day they were doing one. What I believe is that the summative assessments they do are diagnostic type testing. From the Northern Territory Department of Education website, diagnostic or differentiation assessment involves the gathering and careful evaluation of detailed data using students' knowledge and skills in a given learning area. From our textbook, Obie and Sapp say from chapter 15 that differentiation involves designing instruction that meets the needs of students. These instructions should challenge them, but should not overwhelm them. And the differentiation that I've seen outside of special needs students is almost non-existent in my experience. The only definite differentiation that I've seen in second grade, third grade, and fifth grade are the leveled readers they used in fifth grade, which there was about 4. So there were 4 sets of students at different levels of reading comprehension, and they would have one subject, and there would be 4 books divided up about that subject, written slightly differently so that all the students could understand. It's kind of sad because differentiation has so much promise. It just sounds like this is one of the tactics we should be using very often, but it doesn't happen often. Like with differentiation, you're supposed to have pinpoint what the student's weakness is, and then address that with additional paperwork, additional lecture, additional one-on-one time. Like that differentiation should be happening in schools all the time. Should be happening with individuals in classes, but time limits seem to make it kind of an afterthought. It's sad. Teachers have so much to plan for. They don't really have as much time as they should to implement differentiation. Maybe that'll change. We're not sure. So, my reflection on what happened with me. Do I agree with the assessment strategies used at the Boys and Girls Club? I certainly do. They make total sense. You know, of course, it's not an educational environment, so you want to make sure the kids are safe. They're not saying things they're not supposed to. They're not doing things they're not supposed to, and they know why they're not supposed to do those things. So, do I think they should be more strict? Yes, they should be more strict. There were safety things that I saw that I didn't want to let go. Like there were kids surrounding a pool table, and there were certain kids taking shots with with other children directly in front of them. And I learned a long time ago that it's a bad habit to stand in front of that ball because it can hop and it can hit you. So that was just probably one of the small problems I had. Would I use some type of different strategy if I was in there? I'm not so audacious to say I would know. I've worked with kids, but in that environment, I'm not sure what strategy I would have to change. So I thought everything they were doing made perfect sense, and I enjoyed my observation. I've been there 3 times now, enjoyed it every time. They've been very good to me. So that wraps up my video on the types of assessments and what we've been covering this week. I hope you've learned something from it. I hope you're interested, and I hope that I get another chance to make another video. This is fun. I like doing it. Thanks for watching. My name's Michael, and I will see you around.